Hello, and a very warm welcome to Saints Live. I'm Kenzie Benali.
And I'm Steve Forbes.
And it's match day. Today, Southampton take on Liverpool in the Premier League.
Yeah, that's right. Saints face their second away trip in a row with kickoff at Anfield at 3. But we'll be with you for the next half an hour or so to talk everything pre-match. And joining us to do so, we have former Saints captain Dean Hammond and the only man to get a correct score prediction this season, Adam Leach. Now, Adam, we've not seen you in a few weeks. You've been keeping well?
Yeah, really good, Steve. Thanks. Really nice. Yeah, I've had a little bit of time off of my other job, so yeah, feeling pretty good. And I'm just embarrassed for everybody else, especially Dean. Obviously, still, I can go away for a few weeks and confidently come back knowing my one correct score prediction will still lead the way.
It's shocking, isn't it? And Dean, I know we see you all the time, but I still care. So I hope you've had a great week too.
Well, I feel as though you're digging me out a bit, Steve. I think that Adam's having a little bit of a cut there because I'm on every show and I've not got a result right yet. So, yeah, I don't mind taking it on the chin. Hopefully, I'll get one right today. But
There's a fair few games for you to try and get it right, in the upcoming season, of course.
Well, no promises. I'll try my best.
Today may well be the day. But let's kick on and talk about team news, shall we? Because we will be bringing that your way in under 15 minutes' time now. You can see the team arriving at Anfield there. We know that Stuart Armstrong is once again unavailable. Jack Stevens, though, is back in training. And Nathan Redmond is also available again after missing last weekend's game following the birth of his child. Lovely news. Well, Adam, as you are welcome back today, we will come to you first. How do you expect Saints to line up to take on the Reds this afternoon?
Well, that's quite a welcome back. 'Cause it's probably the hardest question to answer. It's quite hard to predict. I think there's quite a few factors in play for Ralph. I think one of the things that may just be in the back of his mind is the two big home games coming up now in very quick succession after this trip. So, and as a manager, you find yourself, I think, sometimes in a difficult position because you want to just go, right, we'll play our strongest team game one, and then we'll just keep going. And we'll, if we have to make a change here or a change there, then we'll suck it up as we go along. But also you've got to sometimes be a bit pragmatic and say, where are our best chances of getting the points? Is it away to Liverpool at Anfield? Or is it the two upcoming home games, Leicester, who are obviously not having a great season, and Brighton as well, who are doing well but are beatable. So I think that perhaps plays into a little bit into the back of Ralph's mind. That said, I would think the back seven pretty much picks itself. It's the front four, which I think I would expect to see some changes today from the four that started against Norwich. I think Nathan Redmond's got a real live chance of coming back, maybe even up top, perhaps going into one of the striking roles. I know there's a sort of a school of thought that maybe now is a good time to try and get Nathan Tella back in. I think that's something I would like to see in this little run of games now. They're going to need him over this Christmas festive period. There's a lot of matches in the next 4 or 5 weeks, and he could be quite an important player. So today against Liverpool might actually be weirdly quite a good day to put him in. I think his pace would be troubling for Liverpool. So I think that's where the changes will come. Exactly what he'll do, it's hard to say, but I think it's that front four. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see 3 changes out of those 4 positions.
Yeah, Dean, it wasn't exactly the result we wanted last weekend. So do you think Ralph may change it up a little bit today?
I don't think he will, Steve, to be honest. I think the points Adam made exactly right. I think Ralph will utilise the squad this week. The timing of it and which player he changes and for what games, I'm not sure. I think the structure of the team and the formation of the team will remain the same for today, especially. I think if you look at the games against Manchester City away, the game against Chelsea away, Southampton were very, very brave and tried to take the game to those teams, tried to press them, tried to implement their game on the bigger teams, and I think they'll do that today. But yeah, I think it's the forward players. I think, like Adam said, the back four pretty much picks itself. You could have an argument of Perrault could come back in just to give that balance on that left-hand side, being left-footed. I think it hinders Cole Walker-Peters on occasions when he gets into good positions, trying to come back onto his right foot. And Nathan Tella could come back into the team, like Adams mentioned there, which he did for the Chelsea game, because he has that pace when Southampton maybe regain possession and can play on that counter-attack and utilise his pace. So Nathan Redmond, I think, will probably come back in, but not too many changes. I think there was a lot right last week, especially in the first half. The goals conceded would be a concern, but I don't think there'll be too many changes today. And I think the team will be very, very positive.
Absolutely. Well, as ever, make sure you let us know your thoughts as well. You can send us in a comment and tell us who you'd like to see in today's starting 11, which of course we'll be bringing you in under 10 minutes time. And now, as we've mentioned, last weekend's defeat at Norwich was of course disappointing. But Adam, let's focus on the positives. Shea Adams scoring his third goal in 4 games. But actually it was quite interesting because it was quite a composed, measured strike, wasn't it? And it's a little unusual because we're used to seeing him with quite instinctive finishes. So what did you make of that one?
Well, I thought it was really encouraging to see him score a goal of that sort, to kind of prove that he can score a goal of that sort. I mean, it was a fantastic finish. As you rightly said, it was really, really composed in the end, not only to work himself the space, but then the actual execution of the finish was great. And before that, yeah, I mean, we said that was always a problem with Shea, really, was when he gets in these positions, like he was against Norwich, that those aren't the ones that he often scores. It's the spectacular. It's the ones we're seeing here, Watford, Sheffield United, of course, the one that everybody remembers as well, the Man City one. They're instinctive. They are, by their very nature, much more technically difficult than the chances that he's tended to miss. But it's been that sort of pattern that you see with some strikers where when they've just got that time to think for a moment, that can be when things go a little bit haywire for them. So I think for him, it's just about being a little bit more decisive in those areas. It's because we can see that he's got the ability to do this, to score all manner of goals. So I think for him, it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing. And I'm sure it's something that Ralph's working on him with. He's still a very young player. We shouldn't forget that. Just because he's now kind of got the mantle of really leading the line after Danny Ings went. He is still a young player. He is still learning his trade, and particularly at Premier League level. But we know he can score all these goals. I think it's more in his head than physical, and I'm sure that's something that he and Ralph are working on.
Well, from scoring to conceding, Dean, reflecting back on last weekend, the goals that Southampton did let in, could they have dealt with them better?
Yeah, I think so, Steve. If you look at it, I think it's small details. I think the timing of the goal as well, when Southampton had just got ahead and 3 minutes later Norwich were level. There was lots in the move that could have been stopped. Romeo going to close the ball down. Just communication from James Ward-Prowse to kind of push him, move him across, and James Ward-Prowse go to the ball. The cross, Bednarak is with Pukki and then doesn't communicate to pass him on to Salisu. Salisu being square on, just needs to be side on so we can see Pukki coming and just kind of get his arm out. So it's the small detail and more just the communication. And Alex McCarthy, potentially a little bit disappointed to get beaten at the near post. And then the second goal is a combination of Lianco kind of losing his marker. The movement kind of deceives him. Grant Hanley gets a header. James Ward-Prowse can't quite get a jump, can't quite get his arm up. And again, Alex McCarthy will be honest with himself. You would think he would do better in that occasion and in that position where the ball bounces. And I think he feels as though he's comfortably going to save it. And I don't know if there's a bit of spin on the ball and it kind of just deceives him. So individual errors that I think can be stopped, and just through a lack of communication, maybe a lack of just a little bit of awareness, positional awareness, could have stopped them goals. But I think the frustration will come from the timing of the goal, especially the first one, because Southampton started the game really, really well. We just spoke about Shea's goal and the finish. Get ahead, away from home, you're in control. Norwich are playing really, really deep. Southampton had a lot of possession, and the game was probably a little bit easy. And then just that lapse of concentration. So small details, but they do matter.
Well, following that defeat, some good news for the Saints this week. Jack Stephens is now back in training following his injury, and Ralph Hasenhüttl spoke about that in his press conference.
He's back in training, yes. First week since a long time. And this is good. Good for him, good for us. And if he's ready for the weekend, I'm not sure, but it's good that he's back.
50-50, 80-20
for the weekend.
Yeah.
In the moment, it's quite tough to come in the 18. So we have a lot of alternatives in this on the squad in the moment. And I think after 1 week training, coming immediately back, I think it takes a little bit. Normally I try to give him a little bit longer time on the pitch to come back, because we were still taking care of him this week with being a floater and something like that. So not doing everything what we normally do, and give him time. It's not no reason to hurry, to rush.
Ralph talking about Jack Stephens there, a player who played every minute of the season in the league and the cup up until his injury. So, Adam, does he now face a bit of a challenge to get back in the side?
I think he's really on the back foot, to be honest, Steve. It's unfortunate, obviously. It's not his fault he got injured, and he was playing well. I know Dean and I have both spoken glowingly about Jack, and we're both fans of him. But even so, I think you have to say that old cliche in football. It's like, when you've got the shirt, it's yours to try and earn and try and keep. And we've seen Bednarek and Salisu really strike up a good partnership. They look solid together. They look a good, not just two good individuals, but a good pairing as well, who are finding their feet together really, but already looking impressive. Of course, the Anko's the other option as well there. So there's Ralph's got a lot of options there. Jack has, but through no fault of his own, dropped now to maybe third choice, maybe fourth choice. I mean, time will tell on that one. It's hard to really say, but for sure it's a massive battle. And to be totally honest, it's great to see Jack back and available again. But unless there's an injury or a suspension, I don't see him getting back in the team anytime soon, which is unfortunate for him. But it's a good thing for Saints, and it's a good thing for Ralph, because it shows how well they've coped while he's been out.
Well, Dean, Salisu and Bednarek have started every Premier League game since Jack's injury. Is that a partnership that Ralph is going to find quite difficult to break up?
I think so. I think, like Adam's just touched on, they've both been excellent individually and collectively. They've formed a very, very good partnership. They're both athletic. They can play that slightly higher line than potentially last year, because they can recover. They have that pace to recover. Physically, you see from the highlights, they both like to defend. They block. And what I like about both, and they're quite aggressive. They'll try and get up to the forward. They'll try and win the ball in front of the forward. And that allows Southampton to be progressive. So when they win the ball back, they're higher up the pitch and they can turn defence into attack quicker. I think it's 5 clean sheets for Southampton this season, which is very, very impressive. So there's been huge improvements, especially in Salisu, because he had to be very, very patient when he came into the football club. He's waited for his opportunity, and I think he's improving all the time. And I think it's been a very, very good signing. So, it's been very, very good. But you have to touch on Alex McCarthy has been good this season. I think Oriol Romeu playing consistently this season after his injury last year, having that protection in front of the back four has helped them 100%. And I think it's been settled. I think that's a huge thing in football. When you can build a relationship with the player next to you, that can really, really help, because you can build an understanding. Now, I know we touched on a minute ago the goals conceded against Norwich, and you can mention that there needs to be a bit more communication, but there's the improvement. So I think they've done very, very well, and they will continue to play, and it's built a really strong foundation for Southampton.
Yes, indeed. Well, under 30 seconds to go until we can bring you that team news. Lots of you getting excited watching along at home, sending us in your comments as well. We have just about enough time to sneak in a couple of those now. Neil Oakley has said he's going for a big 3-1 win to the Saints today. Well, that would certainly be nice. Cameron's also got in touch and he says, come on, lads, watching from a cool 21 degrees Cyprus, trying to make us all jealous there. And he is going for a 2-1 Saints win. Well, let's bring you that team news now then, shall we? today. Several changes, actually. Quite a few things to digest from this one. So I'm going to read out the team. In goal, Alex McCarthy, Jan Bednarek, Mohamed Salisu, Lianco, Tino Livramento, Armando Broja, Oriol Romeu, James Ward-Prowse, our captain, Adam Armstrong and Shay Adams. Quite a lot to take in there. And the Saints substitutes are as follows. Fraser Forster, Carl Walker-Peters, Jan Valery, Ibrahima Diallo, Will Smallbone, Nathan Redmond, Nathan Teller, Theo Walcott and Shane Long. So this has only just come through to us hot off the press. So let's come to you first, Adam, for your thoughts on that, because a few surprises, I think that's fair to say. So Lianco starts, Broja comes in as well. What do you make of that team news?
Well, you remember when I said earlier that the question of what was the team going to be was the hardest question? That's why. Yeah, I mean, I don't think probably any of the four of us would have expected a change in system from Ralph. But I mean, that's what we've got here. We've got obviously the three centre halves playing. The plan, I'm guessing, looking at the team, is to try and go to Liverpool and be solid, be defensively strong, to probably keep men behind the ball, try and keep them out. We know Liverpool are very strong, obviously across the pitch, including particularly in the wide areas. So I think maybe Ralph's thinking by getting two wing backs going and probably hopefully going forward, that may limit Liverpool's ability to attack Saints out wide, and particularly down the right hand side this year. Liverpool have been exceptionally strong in an attacking sense, so maybe having Perrault back in as a natural left footer who can kind of press up that wing, maybe the thought is that is going to kind of control Alexander-Arnold and Salah to some extent. And in terms of the attacking positions, yeah, really interesting shake-up and an interesting choice, I think. And I'm not entirely sure whether exactly how he will play the three of them and how exactly they'll line up. You'd expect obviously Shay to be through the middle, but whether it's two off of him or what, it's quite hard to tell until we see the team line up. But it's an interesting team. It's a bold selection, I would say, because it's one of those that you feel like you want to get that right. You don't want to go and be overcautious and over defensive. You also don't want to overcommit or do something, make a whole heap of changes and get stuffed. So a bold selection from Ralph, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, Dean, isn't it? Certainly a bold assessment, and not one that we were expecting to see. Quite brave from Ralph. Do you think that this is the team that can really go at Liverpool today?
Well, I hope so. I think brave is the right word, Kenzie. There's obviously a reason for it. Tactically, there will be a reason. I think going to a back three, a back five, I think we're all fully aware of how strong Liverpool are, attacking wise, with the players they have, world-class players. So that could be to contain them and match them up for that. Adam touched on it, Arnold at right back has such an effect on Liverpool with his delivery and his assists. So playing a wing back will give, Perra the opportunity to go really tight to him. But I think the interesting thing is how the front three of Southampton will balance off. Will it be a two with Shay Adams and Brower up front and Adam Armstrong kind of playing as a number 10, or will it be more of a wide three with Shay Adams or Brower going through the middle and either one of them playing a little bit wider? So I think that will be the interesting thing to see, but it's still an attack-minded team. There's still attacking players that can hurt Liverpool, and it will also be interesting to see how they will press in that shape, because I think, like I mentioned before, the games against Man City and Chelsea, Southampton had real success because they were able to press Man City, not allow them to get into their rhythm, not allow their flair players to gain control of the game. So it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm really intrigued.
Well, James will be making his 200th Premier League start for Southampton today, Adam. It's obviously a great achievement, but it feels like he just keeps setting these milestones for the club. Yeah,
it makes you feel old as well. When you remember watching his debut, he's. I mean, what can you say about Prowse that's not been said? He's such a leader now for Saints, for the club as a whole. He's kind of the face of it now for the team, for the squad, for the dressing room, if you like. Yeah, it's been a remarkable rise really for him when you consider you wind back a few years, and I think we were all wondering really whether he had a future at Saints or not at that point. To be honest, I think even he did from conversations. I think even he was wondering, is it time to move on? Just that period that he went through where he was kind of more, he was still young, but he was more experienced than a youngster who's kind of happy just to wait for whatever chances they can get. He wanted to play. But what was his position? Nobody knew what his position was really. He believed he could play the position that he's now playing. He always believed that. But I'm not sure a lot of other people did believe it, frankly. And certainly the managers he had didn't believe it. They saw him as this sort of Beckham-esque wide player who's going to sling in crosses. But the truth is the modern game went away from that being the fashion of slinging in crosses for strikers in the box. That's not the way that Premier League football's played these days. So he was never likely to be able to thrive. So it needed a mixture of his maturity, I think, as a player, and a manager who was prepared to give him the chance to play in the position he wanted, to really kind of bring him through and wow, have all of the people involved in that equation reap the rewards, because yeah, he's absolutely tremendous, and yes, another milestone. And you just wonder to yourself, how many more milestones are there ahead for him? There's potentially a lot. You know, he's already moving himself towards that position of a fairly, exalted company at Saints. And you already begin to think in more recent terms of Letizia, Benali, people like that. You know, could he be putting himself in a bracket with those guys as sort of absolute club legends, sort of see a whole career out at one football club and kind of become a legend there? He's got the potential to do that. I think he could play for Saints for many, many more years to come. I guess it just depends what opportunities come his way and how he feels about them, really. But I think he seems very settled and very happy and very content. And he's a clever guy. He's a bright guy as well. And though I'm sure he wants to test himself at the highest level he can, I think anybody who's around Saints a lot, and he's obviously been here a very long time, will look at Matt and Franny and people like that. And there is something, once you get to a point, that's quite appealing about that, I think, because you see the way that these guys are legends for the rest of their lives, at a football club, and you think, well, yeah, okay, that's something that I could have as well, and that's a pretty amazing thing to have in your life, I would say. And so I imagine that's in the back of his head as well. So hopefully many more milestones to come at Saints, and hopefully for him, above all else, I hope that the thing that would probably keep him here is if he can make that breakthrough to become a more regular starter in the England team. So I think if that happened, I can't see him leaving.
Absolutely, and he certainly deserves it, doesn't he? Well, let's hear from you, the fans, once again, shall we? Looks like you're enjoying the change up in the starting 11, because still plenty of good score predictions coming through, actually. Ben Peters has got in touch and he says Adams to get a goal, and we sit back the rest of the game. We need at least a point here. Ian Stacey, hello to you. He says, come on, Saints, need at least a point today. Babak, who's watching on Facebook, says if we score early, anything can happen. Rosemary, good afternoon. She says, get in there, Saints. It's going to be a tough game, but as long as we put 100% in for 90 minutes, I shall be a happy lady. Let me say 1-2 to the Saints. Seen that scoreline pop up a couple of times. That would be lovely. Darren Kitchers watching on YouTube. Hello. He says, come on, Saints, let's get a win today. And we have a comment here from Owen, also watching on YouTube. He's going for 2-1 as well to the Saints. He thinks it will be Adam Armstrong and our very own James Ward-Prowse to score as well.
Well, that would be great, wouldn't it? But a slightly ominous fact here, Dean, is that Southampton haven't scored in their last 5 visits to Anfield. We've seen Broja come back into the side. So how do you think that Saints attackers can actually cause Liverpool problems today?
Well, it's going to be difficult, Steve. You know, if you looked at, they've conceded 11 goals, I think, this season so far. They're excellent team, attacking wise, defensively, got some world-class players. But, a good example, a few weeks ago, Brighton went to Anfield and drew 2-2 after being 2-0 down and did cause Liverpool some problems. And they're defensively strong, Liverpool, but they will give you more opportunities than, say, a Chelsea, than the Man City. They're a little bit more vulnerable. So I think it's been clever when you gain possession of the ball, clever movement, doing it at pace. When Liverpool attack, and they do attack with numbers, they're vulnerable then. Can you turn over possession and play on the counter-attack and use that energy and pace within the Southampton team to cause problems? And in one-on-one situations, so an Adam Armstrong, a Brower, Shea Adams, a Livramento, when they get in those positions, can they take someone on? Can they cause an overlap? And when the opportunities come, you need to be ruthless, because there won't be too many at Anfield today. I think that's quite clear for any team that goes to Anfield. You're not going to get a bundle of chances, so you need to be ruthless and clinical when they do come. So there will be possibilities today. And a little bit of fortune would be nice, a deflected shot, something like that, a mistake from a Liverpool player. I think to get results at the big clubs, you always need that. So there will definitely be opportunities, but it's whether the Southampton players can be clinical today.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Adam, we know that Ralph has changed the shape for today's match, and something else we've seen him change in recent weeks is substitutions. He certainly made some bold subs in the last couple of games. Now we know, of course, against Aston Villa, he's replaced Stu Armstrong with Lianco early in the second half against Aston Villa. Of course, we got a win and a clean sheet, a great result there. Against Norwich, though, it's fair to say that the substitutions probably didn't work as he had hoped. But in your opinion, what have you made of those substitutions, and perhaps that change that we've seen recently in making substitutions earlier on in games?
It's really interesting because it feels like it's a very deliberate move. I wouldn't say premeditated, because that makes it sound like the substitutions themselves are premeditated. I don't believe that's the case, but it's almost a premeditated thought from Ralph and his development, perhaps as a coach and a manager, that perhaps he's going to be a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more bold with his decision making. If you wind back during his time at Saints, I think it's one criticism that people have had from the very beginning of Ralph, as much as people love him, that maybe he's been a little bit passive with his substitutions. He's kind of, the moment has passed him by, and other managers have made the changes against Saints that have been bold and have made a difference, and Ralph has kind of waited until actually it's ended up proving to be a little bit too little too late. So I think I wonder with Ralph whether this is something that's very deliberate for him. And like we said about everybody, he's still learning his trade as well. I mean, he's a credible manager, he's very experienced obviously, but doesn't mean there aren't things he can't try. It's just that with everything, it's like making those decisions in the heat of the moment when you're under a lot of pressure, when you're trying to probably communicate 10 things to your team, and you're thinking about a major change early on. You're not only thinking about the system or how it will affect the game, but you're probably also thinking about how it will affect the players, particularly the player. If you're going to pull somebody off and you're going to pull them off in a fairly dramatic, unexpected fashion, you're thinking about how that will affect the dynamics as well. There's a lot to consider. But I like it. I think it's good. I'd rather see him be bold and be adventurous and occasionally things not work out than be passive. And because I think most of the time when managers are passive and they just give it another 10 minutes or just wait 5 more minutes, that's normally means that the ship will sail. As whereas I think the managers, and you look at the big managers as well, they often will make changes that sometimes you raise an eyebrow. You're surprised they'll do something so bold so early, but it works more often than not for them. And I think it's a good thing, and I hope we'll see Ralph not do it. I'm sure he won't do it needlessly, and I hope he won't do it needlessly. But when the occasion's right, I fully would back him, even if every so often it doesn't work out.
Dean, as part of the challenge facing Ralph now, just keeping players happy, he's obviously got a much bigger squad, and maybe he feels that he needs to get players like Broja and Walcott on the pitch more often.
I think you're right, Steve, in saying the squad is much bigger. I think the quality of the squad is better as well. I think there's more options for the manager, and that could be the reason for the substitution, like Adams has made, and the changes that he liked to make during games. And yes, part of the modern game is keeping players happy, because you do utilise the squad. The amount of fixtures that these players play now, the speed of the game, you do need to make changes. So you need players that are ready. You need players that are hungry. But I also think the players need to earn that opportunity as well. It's not a given that just because I'm in the squad, just because I've got a good reputation, just because I've had a good season last year, that I get the opportunity. I think it's always should be right that if you're playing well and you're in form, you keep the shirt and you play. And if you're training well and you come off the bench, you need to make an impact. So I think there's a real fine balance. And I think Ralph is getting it right. I quite like.
It was likely that Saints were going to get knocked out that night. It was just, yeah, absolutely incredible.
Fantastic night, and one that many Saints fans will remember for a long time. Back to this season, and we have drawn 0-0 at Man City in September. It was 1-1 at Chelsea until that late red card. So, Dean, can confidence be taken from these away performances so far?
100%, Steve, because those performances were very, very good as well. Very good, especially the performance against Man City. I thought it was exceptional. The way the team was organised, how disciplined they were, the amount of interceptions, the amount of times they stopped Man City from really creating any clear-cut chances. And then from that disciplined shape and that disciplined press, you know, the penalty that was, in my eyes, the sending off for Kyle Walker, which I think should have been, And it was an exceptional performance. So they can take a lot of confidence going into Liverpool today. Liverpool are slightly different because they're very dynamic and they've got some brilliant individuals who, in one-on-one situations, with their pace and their ability, can cause anyone problems. And they've shown that in their last performance against Arsenal when they won 4-0. So it's going to be a real test. But Southampton seem to have raised the game, the players individually, collectively. So, the workload's going to be a lot. You're going to have to work very, very hard. You're going to have to run a lot. I know that sounds silly, but you're going to have to run a little bit more. You're going to have to work really well as a team. And then when you get those opportunities, take them. It's almost as simple as that. And hope that Liverpool have that, a poorer day. They've played in the Champions League on Wednesday. Will they be a little bit tired? And they've got a big game coming up next Wednesday against Everton, so a local derby. So hopefully, maybe they might have overlooked this. So there will be opportunities for Southampton today.
Absolutely. And I've got to say, seeing that footage from 2017 has got me riled up a little bit. I'm looking forward to this one. But obviously, Adam, it's not an easy place to go, Anfield. So let's come to you for your thoughts ahead of this one and your score prediction, please.
Well, I don't think it's the greatest insight or analysis to say that it's going to be hard and that Liverpool are a good team, but that is obviously very true. Saints have done well against some of the bigger teams. I quite like actually the idea of the team that Raf's put out. In theory, it's interesting and it's different, and it's I can kind of begin to piece it together and see where he's thinking. I mean, the reality is to get anything is going to be extremely challenging for Saints today. What you want is for them to be really competitive, for them to cause Liverpool problems. And as Dean mentioned earlier, you've got to be ruthless. If you get a chance, you've got to score. There's no two ways against a team like Liverpool. You're not likely to get many chances at Anfield, so you've got to take them. I think honestly, it's probably Liverpool are too strong. But I'm just hoping Saints can give them a go. I mean, prediction-wise, I've got to try and maintain my place at the top, so I probably have to go with realistic prediction, which I think is probably a 2-0 Liverpool win.
Okay, well, Dean, we'll come to you. This is your opportunity to be on par with Adam here, so think carefully. As we've been saying throughout the show, it's of course going to be a very tough test, but as you've just mentioned in your previous answer, we have seen Southampton really raise their game against the big teams. So what are your feelings ahead of this one?
Exactly the same as what Adam's just said. It's going to be very, very tough. Liverpool are a good team and a special team at Anfield. So I think if Southampton can keep them quiet and keep the scores level for a good period of time, have moments of possession and frustrate Liverpool, I think that will help. But it's going to be really, really tough. But like I say, I'm intrigued with how the front three are going to set up for Southampton and whether that confusion can cause Liverpool some problems. But I think Liverpool will score. So Southampton are going to have to score today. And I think that will be the difficulty. So I'm going to go for a hopeful 1-1 draw today.
1-1 draw. Well, Dean's slightly keeping the fans on side with that one. Adam, I feel you're just going for an unassailable lead at the top of our score prediction chart. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us on Saints Live. You'll be back with us for the final whistle, as will Kenzie and myself. Kick-off at Anfield is in around about 35 minutes time between Southampton and Liverpool. We'll be back for the final whistle, as I said, so we'll see you then.
Bye for now.